The marvelous thing is that it's painless. That's how you know when it starts.
Is it really?
Absolutely. I'm awful sorry about the odor, though. That must bother you.
Don't. Please don't.
Look at them. Those birds. Now, is it sight or is it scent that brings them in like that? Those vultures. They've been there since the day the truck broke down. Today's the first time any had lit on the ground. I watched the way they sailed very carefully at first, in case I ever wanted to use them in a story. That's funny now.
I wish you wouldn't.
I'm only talking. It's much easier if I talk. But I don't want to bother you.
You know it doesn't bother me. It's that I've gotten so very nervous not being able to do anything. I think we might make it as easy as we can until the plane comes.
Or until the plane doesn't come.
Please, tell me what I can do. There must be something I can do.
You can take the leg off and that might stop it. Though I doubt it. Or you could shoot me. You're a good shot now. I taught you to shoot, didn't I?
Please don't talk that way. Couldn't I read to you?
Read what?
Anything in the book that we haven't read.
I can't listen to it. Talking's the easiest. We quarrel and that makes the time pass.
I don't quarrel. I never want to quarrel. Let's not quarrel anymore, no matter how nervous we get. Maybe they'll be back with another truck today. Maybe the plane will come.
I don't want to move. There's no sense in moving now except to make it easier for you.
That's cowardly.
Can't you let a man die as comfortably as he can without calling him names? What's the use of clanging me?
You're not going to die.
Don't be silly. I'm dying now. Ask those bastards. Those huge, filthy birds with their naked heads sunk in hunched feathers.
They're around at every camp. You never notice them. You can't die if you don't give up.
Where did you read that? You're such a bloody fool.
You might think about someone else.
For Christ's sake, it's been my trade.
Wouldn't you like me to read? There's a breeze coming up.
No thanks.
Maybe the truck will come.
I don't give a damn about the truck.
I do.
You give a damn about so many things that I don't.
Not so many, Harry.
What about a drink?
It's supposed to be bad for you. It's said in blacks to avoid all alcohol. You shouldn't drink.
Whiskey soda.
You shouldn't. That's what I mean by giving up. It says it's bad for you. I know it's bad for you.
No, it's good for me. What? So that's it? It's all over. This is the way it's ending. In a bickering over a drink. Since this gangrene started in my right leg, I've had no pain. And with the pain gone, the horror had gone, and all I feel now is a great tiredness and anger that this is the end of it. And frankly, I don't care much about what's coming. For years I was obsessed with it, but now it means nothing in itself. It's strange how easy being tired enough made it. I know now I'll never write the things I had saved to write until I knew enough to write them well. Well, at least I won't have to fail at trying to write them either. I don't know. Maybe I could never write them. And that's why I put them off and delayed starting them in the first place. I guess I'll never know now.
I wish we'd never come. You never would have gotten anything like this in Paris. You always said you loved Paris. We could have stayed in Paris or gone anywhere. I'd have gone anywhere. I said I'd go anywhere you wanted. If you wanted to shoot, we could have gone shooting in Hungary and been comfortable.
Your bloody money.
That's not fair. It was always yours as much as mine. I left everything and went wherever you wanted to go, and I've done what you wanted to do, but I wish we never came here.
You said you loved it.
I did when you were all right, but now I hate it. I don't see why that had to happen to your leg. What have we done to have that happen to us?
Well, I suppose what I did was forget to put iodine on it when I first scratched it. Then I didn't pay any attention to it because I never infect. Then, later, when it got bad, it was probably using that weak carbonic solution while the other antiseptics ran out that paralyzed the minute blood vessels and started the gangrene. What else?
I don't mean that.
If we would have hired a good mechanic instead of a half-baked Kyuku driver, we could have checked the oil and never burned out the bearing in that truck.
I don't mean that.
If you hadn't left your own people, your old goddamn West Sudbury, Saratoga, Palm Beach people to take me on...
Why, I loved you. That's not fair. I love you now. I'll always love you. Don't you love me?
No, I don't think so. I never have.
Harry, what are you saying? You're out of your head.
No, I haven't any head to go out of.
Don't drink that, darling. Please don't drink that. We have to do everything we can.
You do it. I'm tired. I see a railway station at Carrigatch. I'm standing with my pack. The headlight of the Simplon offend, cut in the dark as I'm leaving Thrace after the retreat. That's one of the things I saved to write. And then in the morning at breakfast, looking out the window, seeing snow on the mountains in Bulgotha. And Nansen's secretary is asking the old man if it were snow. The old man looking at it says, "No, that's not snow. It's too early for snow." And the secretary repeating to the other girls, "No, it's not snow." And them all saying, "It's not snow. We were mistaken." But it was snow all right. And he sent them out onto it when he evolved exchange of populations. And it was snow, and they tramped along in it until they died that winter. It was snow, too, that fell all Christmas week that year up the Gutterall. That year we lived in the woodcutter's house with the big square porcelain stove that filled half the room. We slept on mattresses filled with beech leaves. The time the deserter came in with his feet bloody in the snow. He said the police were right behind him, and they gave him woolen socks and kept him talking until the tracks had drifted over. In Schruns, on Christmas Day, the snow was so bright it hurt your eyes when you looked out from the wine's tube and saw anyone coming home from church. That was where we walked up the sleigh-smoothed, urine-yellowed road along the river with the steep pine hills, skis heavy on the shoulder, and where they ran down the glacier above. The snow was smooth to see as cake frosting and as light as powder. I remember the noiseless rush the speed made as we dropped down like a bird. We were snowbound a week at that time, in the blizzard playing cards in the smoke by the lantern light. And the stakes were higher all the time as Erlent lost more. Finally, he lost it all. Everything. All the season's profit and his capital. I can see him, with his long nose picking up the cards and then opening. "Sans voix!" There was always gambling then. When there's no snow, you gambled. And when there was too much, you gambled. To think of all the time in my life I spent gambling. But I'd never written a line of that, nor that cold, bright Christmas day with the mountains showing across the plain that Barker had flown across the lines to bomb the Austrian officers' leave train, machine gunning them as they scattered and ran. I remember Barker afterwards coming into the mess and starting to tell about it, and how quiet it got. And then somebody saying, "You bloody murderous bastard." Those are the same Austrians they killed then that I skied with later. No, not the same. Hans, that I skied with all that year, had been in the Kaiser Jägers. And when they went hunting hares together up in the little valley above the sawmill, we had talked of the fighting. And I had never written a word of that. Nor of Monte Corona, nor the Sedi Communi. nor the Arciero. How many winters had I lived in the Vorarlberg, in the Arlberg? It was 4. I remember the man who had the fox to sell when they had to walk into Bluden's that time to buy presents, and the cherry pit taste of good Kirsch, the fast-slipping rush of running powder snow on crust, singing, "Hi-ho," said Raleigh. As you ran down the last stretch of the steep drop, taking it straight, then running into the orchard in 3 turns and out across the ditch and onto the icy road behind the inn. Knocking your bindings loose, kicking the skis free, and leaning them up against the wooden wall of the inn. Lamplight coming from the window, or inside in the smoky new wine-smelling warmth. They were playing the accordion. Where did we stay in Paris?
At the Crillion, you know that.
Why do I know that?
That's where we always stayed.
No, not always.
There, and the Pavilion in Saint Germain. You said you loved it there.
Love is a dunghill, and I'm the cock that gets on it to crow.
If you have to go away, is it absolutely necessary to kill off everything you leave behind? I mean, do you have to take away everything? Do you have to kill your horse and your wife and burn your saddle and your armor?
Yes, your goddamn money was my armor. My sword and my armor. Don't. All right, don't. All right, I'll stop that. I don't want to hurt you.
It's a little bit late now.
All right, then I'll go on hurting you. It's more amusing. The only thing I ever really liked to do with you, I can't do it now.
No, that's not true. You like to do many things, and everything you wanted to do, I did.
Oh, for Christ's sake, stop bragging, will ya? Listen, you think that it's fun to do this? I don't know why I'm doing it. It's trying to kill to keep yourself alive, I imagine. I was all right when we started talking. I didn't mean to start this. And now I'm crazy as a coot and being as cruel to you as I can be. Don't pay any attention, darling, to what I say. I love you, really. You know I love you. I never loved anyone else the way I love you.
You're sweet to me.
You bitch. You rich bitch. That's poetry. I'm full of poetry now. Rotten poetry. Rotten poetry.
Stop it, Harry. Why do you have to turn into a devil now?
I don't like to leave anything. I don't like to leave things behind. Helen had gone to kill a piece of meat, and knowing how I liked to watch the game, she'd gone well away, so that she wouldn't disturb this little pocket of the plain that I could see. She was always thoughtful on anything she knew about or had read or that she ever heard. It was not her fault that when I went to her, I was already over. How could a woman know that you meant nothing that you said, that you spoke only from habit and to be comfortable? After I no longer meant what I said, my lies were more successful with women than when I had told them the truth. It's not so much that I lied, that there was no truth to tell. I had my life, and it was over, and then I went on living it again, with different people and more money, with the best of the same places and some new ones. He kept from thinking. It was all marvelous. You were equipped with good insides, so that you didn't go to pieces that way, the way most of them had. And you made an attitude that you cared nothing for the work you used to do. Not that you could no longer do it, but in yourself you said that you'd write about these people, about the very rich, that you were really not of them, but a spy in their country, that you would leave it and write of it, and for once it would be written by someone who knew what they were writing of. But I would never do it, because each day of not writing, of comfort, of not being that which he despised, dulled my ability and softened my will to work, so that finally I did no work at all. The people I knew now were all much more comfortable than when I did not work. Africa was where I had been happiest, in the good time of my life. So I'd come out here to start again. We had made this safari with the minimum of comfort. There was no hardship, but there was no luxury, and I had thought that I could get back into training this way. That in some way I could work the fat off my soul the way a fighter went into the mountains to work and train in order to burn it out of his body. She had liked it. She said she loved it. She loved anything that was exciting, that involved a change of scene, where there were new people and where things were pleasant. I had felt the illusion of returning strength of will to work. Now, if this is how it ended, and I knew it was, I must not turn like some snake biting itself because its back was broken. It wasn't this woman's fault, and if it had not been she, it would have been another. If I lived by a lie, I should try to die by it. She shot well. This rich bitch, this kindly caretaker and destroyer of my talent. Nonsense. I destroyed my talent myself. Why should I blame this woman because she kept me well? I had destroyed my talent by not using it, by betrayals of myself and what I believed in, by drinking so much that I blunted the edge of his perceptions, by laziness, by sloth and by snobbery, by pride and by prejudice, by hook and by crook. What was this? A catalog of old books? What was my talent anyway? Oh, it was a talent, all right, but instead of using it, I'd traded on it. It was never what I had done, but always what I could do. And I had chosen to make my living with something else instead of a pen or a pencil. It was strange, too, wasn't it? That when I fell in love with another woman, that woman should always have more money than the last one. But when I no longer was in love, when I was only lying as to this woman now, who had the most money of all, who had all the money there was, who had had a husband and children, who had taken lovers and been dissatisfied with them, and who loved me dearly as a writer, as a man, as a companion, as a proud possession. It was strange that when I did not love her at all and was lying, that I should be able to give her more for her money than when I had really loved. We must all be cut out for what we do. However you make your living is where your talent lies. I sold vitality in one form or another all my life. And when your affections are not too involved, you give much better value for the money. I had found that out, but I'd never write that now either. No, I would not write that, although it was well worth writing. Ah, here she comes. She was still a good-looking woman. She had a pleasant body. She had a great talent and appreciation for the bed. She was not pretty, but I liked her face. She read enormously, liked to ride and shoot, and certainly she drank too much. Her husband had died when she was still a comparatively young woman, and for a while, she had devoted herself to her two just-grown children, who did not need her and were embarrassed at having her about, to her stable of horses, to books, and to bottles. She liked to read in the evening before dinner, and she drank scotch and soda while she read. By dinner, she was fairly drunk, and after a bottle of wine at dinner, she was usually drunk enough to sleep. That was before the lovers. After she had the lovers, she didn't drink so much because she didn't have to be drunk to sleep. But the lovers bored her. She'd been married to a man who had never bored her, and these people bored her very much. But then, one of her two children was killed in the plane crash, and after all that was over, she didn't want the lovers. And drink being no anesthetic, she had to make another life. Suddenly, she had been acutely frightened of being alone, but she wanted someone that she respected with her. It had begun very simply. She liked what I wrote, and she had always envied the life I led. She thought I did exactly what I wanted to. The steps by which she had acquired me, and the way in which she had finally fallen in love with me were all part of a regular procession in which she had built herself a new life, and I had traded away what remained of my old life. I traded it for security, for comfort too, there was no denying that. And for what else? I don't know. She would have bought me anything I wanted, I knew that. She was a damn nice woman too. I would soon be in bed with her as anyone, rather with her, because she was richer, because she was very pleasant and appreciative, and because she never made scenes. And now, this life that she had built up again was coming to a term because I had not used iodine 2 weeks ago when a thorn scratched my knee as we moved forward trying to photograph a herd of water buck. Standing, their heads up, peering while their nostrils searched the air, their ears spread wide enough to hear the first noise that would send them rushing into the bush. They bolted too, before I got the picture.
Hello. I shot a Tommy ram. He'll make you good broth, and I'll have them mash some potatoes with the clim. How do you feel?
Much better.
Isn't that lovely? You know, I thought perhaps you would. You were sleeping when I left.
I had a good sleep. Did you walk far?
No. Just around behind the hill. I made quite a good shot on the Tommy.
You shoot marvelously, you know.
I love it. I've loved Africa. Really. If you're all right, it's the most fun I've ever had. You don't know. You don't know the fun it's been to shoot with you. I've loved the country.
I love it too.
Darling, you don't know how marvelous it is to see you feeling better. I couldn't stand it when you felt that way. You won't talk to me like that again, will you? Promise me?
No, I don't remember what I said.
You don't have to destroy me, do you? I'm only a middle-aged woman who loves you and wants to do what you want to do. I've been destroyed 2 or 3 times already. You wouldn't want to destroy me again, would you?
I'd like to destroy you a few times in bed.
Yes, that's the good destruction. That's the way we're made to be destroyed. The plane will be here tomorrow.
How do you know?
Oh, I'm sure. It's bound to come. The boys have the wood all ready and the grass to make the smudge. I went down and looked at it again today. There's plenty of room to land, and we have the smudges ready at both ends.
What makes you think it'll come tomorrow?
Well, I'm sure it will. It's overdue now. Then in town, they'll fix up your leg, and we'll have some good destruction. Not that dreadful talking kind.
Shall we have a drink? Sun's going down.
Do you think we should?
I'm having one.
We'll have one together. Whiskey soda.
Look at that hyena on the road. That bastard crosses there every night. Every night for 2 weeks.
Oh, he's the one makes the noise at night. Oh, I don't mind it. They're a filthy animal, though.
Cheers. I can feel the return of acquiescence in this life of pleasant surrender. She was very good to me, and I had been cruel and unjust in the afternoon. She was a fine woman, marvelous, really. And just then it occurred to me that I was going to die. It came with a rush, not as a rush of water nor of wind, but of a sudden evil-smelling emptiness, and the odd thing was that the hyena slipped lightly along the edge of it.
What is it, Harry?
Nothing. You better move over to the other side, to windward.
Did you change the dressing?
Oh, yes, I'm using the boric now.
How do you feel?
A little wobbly.
I'm going in to bathe. I'll be right out. I'll eat with you, and then we'll put the cod in.
So, we did well to stop the quarreling. I've never quarreled much with this woman. While the women that I love, I had quarreled so much that they finally, always, with the corrosion of the quarreling, killed what we had together. I loved too much, demanded too much, and I wore it all out. I remember being alone in Constantinople that time, having quarreled in Paris before I had gone out. I whored the whole time, and then, when that was over, and not only failed to kill my loneliness, but only made it worse, I had written her, the first one, the one who left me, a letter telling her about how I had never been able to kill it. How when I thought I saw her outside of a Regent's one time, it made me go all faint and sick inside. And that I would follow a woman who looked like her in some way along the boulevard, afraid to see if it was not she, afraid to lose the feeling it gave me. How every one I had slept with had only made me miss her more. How what she had done could never matter since I knew I could not cure myself of loving her. I wrote this letter at the club, cold sober, and mailed it to New York, asking her to write me at the office in Paris. That seemed safe. And that night, missing her so much it made me feel hollow, sick inside. I wandered up past Maxim's, picked a girl up, took her out for supper. I'd gone to a place to dance with her afterward. She danced badly and left her for a hot Armenian slut that swung her belly against me, so I almost scalded. I took her away from a British gunner subaltern after a row. The gunner asked me outside, and we fought in the street on the cobbles in the dark. I hit him twice, hard on the side of the jaw, and when he didn't go down, I knew I was in for a fight. The gunner hit me in the body, then beside my eye. I swung with my left again and landed, and the gunner fell on me and grabbed my coat and tore my sleeve off, and I clubbed him twice behind the ear and then smashed him with my right as he pushed me away. When the gunner went down, his head hit first, and I ran with the girl because they heard the MPs coming. We got in a taxi, drove out to Rimini Hisa, along the Bosphorus and around and back in the cool night, and went to bed. She felt as overripe as she looked, but smooth, rose petal, syrup, smooth-bellied, big-breasted, needed no pillow under her buttocks. I left her before she was awake, looking blousy enough in the first daylight, and turned up at the Para Palace with a black eye, carrying my coat because one sleeve was missing. That same night I left for Anatolia, and I remembered, later on that trip, riding all day through fields of the poppies that they raise for opium, and how strange it made you feel, finally, and all the distance seemed wrong to where they had made the attack with the newly arrived Constantine officers that did not know a goddamn thing, and the artillery had fired into the troops, and the British observer had cried like a child. That was the day I'd first seen dead men wearing white ballet skirts and upturned shoes with pom-poms on them. The Turks had come steadily and lumpily, as I had seen the skirted men running and the officers shooting into them and running then themselves. And I and the British observer had run too, until my lungs ached and my mouth was full of the taste of pennies. And we stopped behind some rocks, and there were the Turks coming as lumpily as ever. Later, I had seen the things that I could never think of, and later, still, I had seen much worse. So when I got back to Paris that time, I could not talk about it or stand to have it mentioned. And there in the cafe, as I passed, was that American poet with a pile of saucers in front of him and a stupid look on his potato face talking about the Dada movement, with a Romanian who said his name was Tristan Tzara, who always wore a monocle and had a headache. And back at the apartment with my wife, that now I loved again, the quarrel all over, the madness all over, glad to be home, the officer sent my mail up to the flat. So then the letter in answer to the one I'd written came in a platter one morning, and when I saw the handwriting, I went cold all over and tried to slip the letter underneath another. But my wife said, "Who's that letter from, dear?" And that was the end of the beginning of that. I remember the good times of them all, and the quarrels. They always picked the finest places to have quarrels. And why had they always quarreled when I was feeling best? I'd never written any of that because at first I never wanted to hurt anyone. Then it seemed as though there was enough to write without it. But I always thought that I would write it finally. There was so much to write. I'd seen the world change, not just the events, although I had seen many of them and had watched the people, but I had seen the subtler change. I could remember how the people were at different times. I had been in it, and I had watched it, and it was my duty to write of it. But now, I never would.
How do you feel?
All right.
Could you eat now?
I want to write.
You ought to take some broth to keep your strength up.
I'm going to die tonight. I don't need my strength up.
Don't be melodramatic, Harry, please.
Why don't you use your nose? I'm rotted halfway up my thigh now. What the hell should I fool with broth for? Bring me whiskey soda.
Please take the broth.
All right. You're a fine woman. Don't pay any attention to me.
I feel death coming again. This time there was no rush. It was a puff, as of a wind that makes a candle flicker and the flame go tall.
You can bring my net out later and hang it from the tree and build the fire up. I'm not going in the tent tonight. It's not worth moving. It's a clear night. There won't be any rain.
So this was how you died, in whispers that you did not hear. Well, there would be no more quarreling, I could promise that. The one experience that I had never had, I was not going to spoil now. I probably would. You spoiled everything. But perhaps I wouldn't.
You can't take a dictation, can you?
I never learned.
Oh, it's all right. There wasn't time, of course, although it seemed as though it telescoped so that you might put it all in one paragraph if you could get it right. There was a log house, chinked white with mortar, on a hill above a lake. There was a bell on a pole by the door to call the people in to meals. Behind the house were fields, and behind the fields was the timber. A line of Lombardy poplars ran from the house to the dock. Other poplars ran along the point. A road went up to the hills along the edge of the timber, and along that road I picked blackberries. Then that log house was burned down, and all the guns that had been on the deerfoot racks above the open fireplace were burned, and afterward their barrels, and with the lead melted in the magazines and the stocks burned away, laid out on the heap of ashes that were used to make lye for the big iron soap kettles. And you asked Grandfather if you could have them to play with, and he said no. You see, they were his guns still, and he never bought any others, nor did he hunt anymore. The house was rebuilt in the same place, out of lumber now, and painted white, and from its porch you saw the poplars and the lake beyond. But there were never any more guns. The barrels of the gun that had hung on the deer feet on the wall of the log house lay out there on the heap of ashes, and no one ever touched them. In the Black Forest, after the war, we rented a trout stream, and there we went 2 ways to walk it. One was down the valley from Triberg, and around the valley road in the shade of the trees that bordered the white road, and then up a side road that went up through the hills past many small farms with the big Schwarzwald houses until that road crossed the stream. That was where our fishing began. The other way was to climb steeply up to the edge of the woods and then go across the top of the hills through the pine woods, then out to the edge of a meadow and down along this meadow to the bridge. There were birches along the stream. It was not big, but narrow, clear and fast, with pools where it had cut under the roots of the birches. At the hotel in Triberg, the proprietor had a fine season. It was very pleasant, and we were all great friends. The next year came the inflation, and the money he had made the year before was not enough to buy supplies to open the hotel, and he hanged himself. You could dictate that, but you couldn't dictate the place where the flower sellers dried their flowers in the streets, and the dye ran over the paving where the autobus started, and the old men and women, always drunk on wine and bad mare, and the children with their noses running in the cold. The smell of dirty sweat and poverty and drunkenness at the Café Diamateurs and the horrors at Bal Musette they lived above. The concierge who entertained the troops of the Garde Républicaine in her lodge, his horsehair plumed helmet on a chair. The localière across the hall, whose husband was a bicycle racer, and her joy that morning at the Crémière, where she had opened l'auto and seen where he placed third in Paris Tours, his first big race. She had blushed and laughed, and then gone upstairs crying with the yellow sporting paper in her hand. The husband of the woman who ran the Bal Moulette drove a taxi, and when I had to take an early plane, the husband knocked upon the door to wake me, and we each drank a glass of white wine at the zinc of the bar before they started. I knew my neighbors in that quarter, because they were all poor. Around that place, there were two kinds: the drunkards and the sportives. The drunkards killed their poverty that way. The sportives took it out in exercise. They were the descendants of the communards, and it was no struggle for them to know their politics. They knew who had shot their fathers, their relatives, their brothers, and their friends when the Versailles troops came in and took the town after the Commune and executed anyone they could catch with calloused hands, or who wore a cap or carried any other sign he was a working man. And in that quarter across the street, I had written the start of all I was to do. There was never another part of Paris that I loved like that. Sprawling trees, the old white plastered houses painted brown below, the long green of the autobus in that round square, the purple flower dye upon the paving, sudden drop down the hill of the Rue to the river, and the other way the narrow crowded world of the Rue Mouffard, the street that ran up towards the Pantheon, and the other that I always took with that bicycle, the only asphalted street in all that quarter, smoothed under the tires, with the high, narrow houses and the cheap, tall hotel where Paul Verlaine had died. There were only 2 rooms in the apartment where we lived, and I had a room on the top floor of that hotel that cost me 6 francs a month, where I did my writing. And from it I could see the roofs and the chimney pots and all the hills of Paris. From the apartment, you could see the wood and coal man's place. He sold wine too, bad wine. The golden horse's head outside, where the carcasses hung yellow, gold, and red in the open window, and the green-painted cooperative where they brought their wine, good wine and cheap. The rest was plaster walls and the windows of the neighbors who, at night, when someone lay drunk in the street, moaning and groaning in that typical French way that you propaganded to believe did not exist, would open their windows and then murmur of talk. "Where is the policeman? And when you don't want him, the bugger is always there. He's sleeping with some concierge. Get the agent." Till someone threw a bucket of water from a window and the moaning stopped. "What's that? Water. Ah, that's intelligent." And the window's shutting. Marie, my femme de ménage, protesting against the 8-hour day, saying, "If a husband works until 6, he gets only a riffle drunk on the way home and does not waste too much. If he works only until 5, he is drunk every night, and one has no money. It is the wife of the working man who suffers from this shortening of hours. Would you like some broth?" "No, thank you very much. It's awful good." "Just try a little." "I would like a whiskey soda." "It's not good for you." "No, it's bad for me. Cole Porter wrote the words and the music. This knowledge that you're going mad for me." "You know I like you to drink." "Oh yes, it's only bad for me. When she goes, I'll have all I want. Not all I want, but all there is. I'm tired. Too tired." I was going to sleep a little while, but I lay still and death was not there. It must have gone around another street. It went in pairs, on bicycles, and moved absolutely silently on the pavement. No. I had never written about Paris. Not the Paris that I cared about. But what about the rest that I had never written? What about the ranch and the silvered gray of the sagebrush, the quick, clear water in the irrigation ditches, and the heavy green of the alfalfa? The trail went up into the hills, and the cattle in the summer were shy as deer. The bawling and the steady noise and slow-moving mass raising a dust as you brought them down in the fall. And behind the mountains, the clear sharpness of the peak in the evening light, and riding down along the trail in the moonlight, bright across the bay. Now I remember, coming down through the timber in the dark, holding the horse's tail when you couldn't see, and all the stories that I meant to write. About the half-wit chore boy who was left at the ranch that time and told not to let anyone get any hay, and that old bastard from the Forks who had beaten the boy when he had worked for him stopped by to get some feed. The boy refusing, the old man saying he'd beat him again. The boy got the rifle from the kitchen and shot him when he tried to come into the barn, and when they'd come back to the ranch he'd been dead a week, frozen in the corral, and the dogs had eaten part of him. But what was left I packed into a sled, wrapped in a blanket and roped on, and I got the boy to help me haul it. And the two of us took it over the road on skis and 60 miles down to town to turn the boy over, having no idea that he'd be arrested. Thinking I'd done my duty, and that he was my friend, and that I would be rewarded. He'd helped to haul the old man in so everyone could know how bad the old man had been and how he tried to steal some feed that didn't belong to him. And when the sheriff put the handcuffs on the boy, he couldn't believe it. Then he started to cry. That was one story I saved to write. I knew at least 20 good stories from out there, and I'd never written one. Why? You tell him why.
Why what, dear?
Why? Nothing. She didn't drink so much now, since she had me. But if I lived, he would never write about her. I knew that now, nor about any of them. The rich were dull, they drank too much, or they played too much backgammon. They were dull and they were repetitious. I remembered poor Julian and his romantic awe of them, and how he had started a story once that began, "The very rich are different from you and me," and how someone had said to Julian, "Yes, they have more money." But that was not humorous to Julian. He thought that they were a special, glamorous race, and when he found out they weren't, it wrecked him just as much as any other thing that wrecked him. I'd have been contemptuous to those who wrecked. You didn't have to like it because you understood it. I could beat anything, I thought, because nothing could hurt me if I didn't care. All right. Now, I would not care for death. One thing I'd always dreaded was the pain. I could stand pain as well as any man until it went on too long and it wore me out. But here I had something that had hurt frightfully, and just when it had felt it breaking me, the pain stopped. He remembered long ago when Williamson, the bombing officer, had been hit by a stick bomb someone in a German patrol had thrown as he was coming in through the wire that night, and screamed, had begged everyone to kill him. He was a fat man, very brave and a good officer, although addicted to fantastic shows. But that night, he was caught in the wire, with a flare lighting him up and his bowels spilled out into the wire so that when they brought him in alive, they had to cut him loose. "Shoot me, Harry. For Christ's sake, shoot me." They had an argument one time about our Lord never sending you anything you couldn't bear, and someone's theory had been that meant at a certain time the pain passed you out automatically. But he had always remembered Williamson that night. Nothing passed out Williamson until he gave him all his morphine tablets that he had always saved to use himself, and then they didn't work right away. Still, this now that he had was very easy. And if it was no worse as it went on, there was nothing to worry about, except that he'd rather be in better company. When everything you do too long and do too late, you can't expect to find the people still there. People are all gone. Party's over. And you're with your hostess now. I'm getting as bored with dying as with everything else. It's a bore.
What is, my dear?
Anything you do too bloody long. I've been writing, but I got tired.
Do you think you'll be able to sleep?
I'm pretty sure. Why don't you turn in?
I'd like to sit here with you.
Do you feel anything strange?
No, just a little sleepy.
I do. I just felt death come by again. You know, the only thing I've ever lost is curiosity.
You've never lost anything. You're the most complete man I've ever known.
Christ. How little a woman knows. What is that, your intuition?
Just then, death had come and rested its head upon the foot of the cot, and I could smell its breath.
Never believed any of that about a scythe and a skull. It can be two bicycle policemen as easily, or as a bird. Or it could have a wide snout like a hyena.
It moved up now, but it had no shape. It simply occupied space.
Tell it to go away.
It did not go away, but moved a little closer.
You've got a hell of a breath. You stinking bastard.
It moved closer still, and now he could not speak to it. And when it saw he could not speak, it came a little closer. And now he tried to send it away without speaking. But it moved on him, so its weight was all upon his chest. And while it crouched there, and he could not move or speak, he heard the woman say,
Buana is asleep now. Take the cot up very gently and carry it into the tent.
He could not speak to tell her to make it go away, and it crouched now, heavier, so he could not breathe. And then, while they lifted the cot, suddenly, it was all right, and the weight went away from his chest.
It was morning. It's been morning for some time, and I heard the plane. It showed very tiny, then made a wide circle, and the boys ran out and lit the fires using kerosene, piled on grass so there was two big smudges at each end of the level place. And the morning breeze blew them towards camp, and the plane circled twice more, low this time, and then glided down and leveled off and landed smoothly. And coming towards me was old Compton in slacks, a tweed jacket and a brown felt hat. "What's the matter, old cock?" "Bad leg." "Will you have some breakfast?" "Oh, thanks. I'll just have some tea. It's a puss moth, you know."
I won't be able to take the Mem Sahib. There's only room for one. Your lorry is on the way.
Helen took him aside to speak to him. He came back more cheery than ever.
We'll get you right in. I'll be back for the Mem. Now, I'm afraid I'll have to stop at Arusha to refuel, and we better get going.
Well, what about the tea?
I don't really care about it, you know.
The boys picked up the cot and carried it around the green tents and down along the rock and out onto the plain and past the smudges that were burning brightly now, the grass all consumed and the wind fanning the fire to the little plain. It was difficult getting in, but once in I lay back in the leather seat, and the leg was stuck straight out to one side of the seat where Compton sat. Compton started the motor and got in. He waved to Helen and to the boys, and as the clatter moved into an old familiar roar, we swung around with Compy watching for warthog holes and roared, bumping along the stretch between the fires, and with the last bump rose, and I saw them all standing below waving, and with the camp beside the hill flattening now, and the plain spreading. Clumps of trees and the bush flattening, while the game trails ran now smoothly to the dry water holes. And there was a new water that I'd never known of. The zebra, small rounded backs now, and the wildebeest, big-headed dots seemed to climb as they moved in long fingers across the plain, now scattering as the shadow came towards them. They were tiny now, and the movement had no gallop. And the plain, as far as you could see, gray-yellow now, and ahead old Compy's tweed back and the brown felt hat. And they were over the first hills, and the wildebeest were trailing up them. Then we were over the mountains. There was sudden depths of green rising forest and the solid bamboo slopes, and then the heavy forest again, sculptured into peaks and hollows until they crossed, and hills sloped down, and then another plain, hot now, and purple-brown, bumpy with heat, and Compy looking back to see how I was riding. Then there were other mountains dark ahead. And then, instead of going on to Arusha, we turned left. He evidently figured we had the gas. And looking down, I saw a pink sifting cloud moving over the ground and in the air like the first snow of a blizzard that comes from nowhere. And I knew the locusts were coming, up from the south. Then we began to climb, and we were going to the east, it seemed. And then it darkened, and we were in a storm. The rain so thick it seemed like flying through a waterfall. And then we were out, and Compy turned his head and grinned and pointed there, ahead. All he could see, as wide as all the world, great, high, and unbelievably white in the sun, was the square top of Kilimanjaro. And then I knew that that was where I was going. Just then the hyena stopped whimpering in the night and started to make a strange, human, almost crying sound. The woman heard it and stirred uneasily. She did not wake. In her dream, she was at the house on Long Island, and it was the night before her daughter's debut. Somehow her father was there, and he had been very rude. Then the noise the hyena made was so loud she woke, and for a moment she didn't know where she was, and she was very afraid. Then she took out the flashlight and shone it on the other cot that they had carried in after Harry had gone to sleep. She could see his bulk under the mosquito bar, but somehow he had gotten his leg out, and it hung down alongside the cot. The dressings had all come down, and she could not look at it. "Molo! Molo! Molo!" "Harry? Harry? Harry? Please, oh, Harry!" There was no answer, and she could not hear him breathing. Outside the tent, the hyena made the same strange noise that had awakened her, but she did not hear him for the beating of her heart. The end. STS Audio Theater is produced by a live studio audience at Milthouse Studios in Milton, Vermont, casting around the globe to your frontal lobe right here on YouTube. If you enjoy what we're doing here, make sure to give us a like. We really appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. Every little bit helps. It's because of our patrons and our YouTube members that we're able to run these stories free from disruptive mid-roll ads. So give them a thank you in the comments section down below. I know they'd appreciate it. What's your favorite short story? Let us know and you might hear it in a future episode. But until next time, I'd like to destroy you a few times in bed.